3 weeks of October have gone by already. I do not know how that was possible, but it's time for another transaction video. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. This is A Life Well Spent. My name is Kelly, and on this channel I document my financial journey. And one of the things that I found difficult for me was keeping track of how much money I spent. I used to do this with cash. So I was using cash envelopes to keep track of things that I definitely had a tendency to overspend on. So things like my eating out money, my grocery money. I would definitely have a different sense of how much I was spending. And I realized that I needed to do cash. So I did cash for a while. That was easy. It was perfect. It worked really well for me. And then COVID hit. And one, didn't want to carry around so much cash. Two, was buying a lot of things like on apps and ordering and getting things delivered. And so I didn't like have a mechanism for tracking all of it then, right? Like cash is easy. If I start the month with $100 in this envelope, it's very easy to see how much I've spent, right? If I've got $50 left, I've spent 50. And when I had to start doing things like digitally, I just really wasn't keeping track. So I would get to the end of the month and I would look at like all of my expenditures when I would go to close out my budget for the month. And I'd look at it and be like, yikes, I am really over on this category. Like I had no idea that I was spending that much money to eat out, or I was spending that much money on groceries. And I don't necessarily mind blowing a budget category somewhere. Like obviously I try not to, but it for me the problem was more that it wasn't a conscious decision to go over budget in that category, right? In my mind, I would think, oh, like I've hardly eaten out at all this month, so I definitely can just treat myself tonight. And then I would get annoyed because I'd be like, well, had I realized like, maybe I wouldn't have treated myself, or I would have anyway. I would have been like, you know what? I really only have like 20 bucks left in this category, but I really want to do XYZ. And at least I've made the conscious decision knowing that it was, that I was going over, and could then also adjust the sales a little bit, right? Like if I saw that like, oof, okay, I went over on this. Let me try to rein in something else. Let me, instead of buying that thing I don't really need to have right this second, but I'd like to have, like, let me put that off until next month, right? So then I'm not like blowing every budget category. And I just like, I wasn't doing that. I was getting to the end of the month going like I spent more money than I meant to spend. And so my solution to that was these weekly wrap up videos. So I typically will do them, on like day 8, I look at my expenses from day 1 through 7 of the month. On day 15, I look through, um, 8 through 14 and so on. So it is October 23rd. I just didn't really have time to do it on Tuesday. So I am looking back through my expenditures of the last week. And typically, my first week tends to get really busy because all of my bills come out in the first week, and all of my contributions to retirement accounts and things like that, and the money that I have to move into sinking funds. Like I keep sinking funds for a thing I pay out once a year, a donation that I make to the Nittany Lion Club. Um, i also pay out for my car insurance, and I set that aside every month, and then like the subscriptions and stuff that I do. So that is money that I consider like I have to move. The rest of it I don't really have to move, right? Like if I don't need to put anything in sinking funds, then I won't, and I'll just make a transfer at the end of the month if I want to do that, or have other things I want to save up for, or just put more money in investments, whatever, throughout the month. I will do that. But everything after that first week, like all the money that has to go somewhere or pay a bill, has been moved in that first week. So my first week of transactions is like really long. And then after that, it really just depends. It's usually like, oh yeah, a couple of times I've gone to the gas, I gone and get gas, I got some groceries, I might have bought a thing or two, so it can tend to be pretty quick. And this one is actually going to be a much shorter video. So let's get right into it. Now, um, so I will have covered this in my Transfer Tuesday video, but first things first, um, I put that out yesterday, and it's just weird that like the end of the weeks happened on Tuesdays for me. So, it is what it is this year or this month. So, I did some transfers. I originally this year, one of my goals was to top off my sinking funds to a certain degree and then start shoveling the rest of the money at my emergency fund to get that to a degree that I wanted it to be at. I managed to get everything into my sinking funds at about May, um, except one, my travel sinking fund. And the goal basically was like, as I spent out of it, go ahead and like put money back in. And I have throughout. Most of these are for the most part topped off, but I've had other purchases. So they've, been kind of wavering back and forth. And I thought, like I just don't have as much money that I am anticipating paying this month. So I think I can kind of start putting some of that back in and we'll go from there. So anyway, on the 15th, $50 went to my garden fund, 50 to my gift fund, 50 to my giving fund, 50 to my car repair fund, $80 to my travel fund, and $50 to my clothing fund. Like I bought basically like within the last like couple of months, I like bought a thing here, bought a thing there, spent money on a gift. Like I sent flowers to someone who lost a family member and things like that. So they're just all kind of, and I hadn't put the money back in. So now I'm gonna try to work towards that. Next month for me is a 3 pay month. So I might end up being able to like top them all off. And I may decide to just put it on the emergency fund. I don't know. I haven't decided. I have enough in there. Yeah, it's just kind of like I don't know. I want to see if this method really worked for me when I actually get to do like a year wrap up because I'm kind of curious. And part of me wonders, like, if I just look at, like, the amount I spent in a year and, like, what if I just let's say I spend $1,000 on gifts. What if I just put the $1,000 in there and say, like, "I'm not gonna replenish this until later." So, when it's done, and, like, $1,000 on gifts is all I'm going to spend this year. I don't know. I don't have that many gifts to buy for people, so I feel like that's actually a lot of money, but maybe not, whatever it is, like, at this point, I've been kind of like, I've topped them out to a certain level, and I've just basically been replenishing them, but I'm sort of wondering if, like, maybe the goal isn't like, "Hey, this is the amount that's there, and I will have to just be good about, not overspending at the beginning of the year and, like, saving." I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I moved $53.59 to my emergency fund. That was my interest in my high yield savings account. And I decided rather than put that into um, I think I probably decided when I moved the money over there and saw how much I was making, I was like, nope, it's going to go straight in the emergency fund. It's going to buffer my emergency fund because I knew, if you've seen my earlier videos on my goals for this year, one of my goals was to, yes, top out the emergency or top out the sinking funds, which I did. It was to, contribute certain amounts here, there, whatever, and a stretch goal for me was to get $20,000 in my emergency fund. And I knew it was a stretch goal. And I figured, we'll have to see what the world brings as far as, what I'm going to end up having to shell money out for and then replenish. Like I have $1,000 right now in my house repair fund. But if I may have had to like replace something that was going to cost me $3,000. So that's $2,000 I wouldn't be able to put in my emergency fund. So I was like, we'll see. We'll see how we get there and what we do from there. So, fingers crossed, here's hoping. Anyway, I knew it was going to be a stretch anyway. And so that's when I was like, okay, if there's any free money that comes along that like I wasn't necessarily expecting to get is going to end up going to that. And I'm going to try. I'm going to get very, very, very close. I don't think I'm going to make it, but I'm going to get really, really close. And that's fine because frankly, if I hadn't tried for it, I wouldn't have come close. So I'd rather like reach for something that might just be a little bit out of reach because if I do manage to get it, great. And if like mathematically I could, but it would require a lot of deep cuts in spending. But, you know, whatever. It would be one thing if like mathematically it wasn't possible. Like I'm setting myself to be like, I want to put $50,000 a year this year in my emergency fund. Like that's absurd. I would not be able to do that. But to get it to a certain level, like maybe. maybe if the stars align, like it is possible. There's an outside chance. And like I said, I would rather reach for something like that and come up a little short because I would still have more in there than I would if I just didn't have the goal. So, anyway, I gave $20 to a friend. We had a colleague at work who lost a family member, so we were all pitching in to send her like a gift card for like groceries or, for dining out or something so that they could kind of get through. Um I am going to a conference later on in the year, and I typically go to this conference. And when I went to actually register, my employers pay for the conference. I went to register, and they just hadn't gotten around to paying bills yet. I'm not sure when they actually pay on their bills. Usually, I think it's after the school board meets and they have to vote on and approve like paying of the bills and stuff. So I think that like when I went down to our HR in our district office, the guy was like, "Oh, he's like, I don't think I have any room on my card." He's like, "I don't know if anybody else does either. Like, I have their numbers, I could use it, but I don't really know." And I was like, "Well, then let me just do it. Like, I'll put it on mine. You can reimburse." So that's what I did. So that was $655. The very next transaction is them reimbursing it because I literally like paid for it, went down, and I was like, "Here's the invoice," and they wrote me a check. So easy enough. Um, Anyway, 48.88 I spent on food. I treated my mother, and got my own food at, the bar where we play trivia. So that's 48.88. I got a new credit card, which I'll talk about that at some time later, but part of why I was so willing to put it on my credit card was that, like, I am getting some travel points, which I'm pretty excited about. So, anyway, same thing with dinner. I was like, "Mom, like, you can pay me back if it's something whatever, but, like, when you and I are together, I am paying because I wanna put as many." I have to get, like, I think it's spend $4,000 in 3 months to get, like, a certain number of travel points or rewards or whatever, and I was like, $4,000 in 3 months is a lot for me. Like, I was kind of like, "I'm not sure I can do that very easily." But I realized, I was like, I thought about it and I was like, "Oh, I can put that conference on. That's gonna be like almost $700." And it was 655. I was like, my mom and I are taking a trip and I was like, "I'm paying for everything. Like, you can just pay me back." But like, we're putting everything on my card so that I can, but I figured between like the trip, and between that conference, and I was like, plus like it is Christmas. So I was like, yeah, like maybe I'll get there. Still gonna be a bit of a stretch because even right now I'm only at like $800 and like almost 700 of that was this conference. So like, okay, it's gonna be tight. But no, actually, I think the trip will do it because I think between anything that we buy down there, we still have yet to get a hotel for 3 nights and so I was like, I think I'll be good for this. And then the conference is actually outside of that window because I have to book a hotel room and get reimbursed. So I was like, okay, I can probably spend like 1,500 at the conference between like the hotel and all my food and everything and gas and all that, which will be reimbursed. Like I should be good there, but no, it's gonna be outside the window. Anyway, so that's why I'm paying for all these things. Then I got dinner at Little Caesars, and I mean that seems expensive, $11.70, but that lasted me 3 meals, right? I eat, like, a little bit of the pizza, a little bit of crazy bread and sauce, and it lasts me 3 meals. It probably coulda lasted me 4, but I was absolutely starving, and I ate more of the pizza than I normally do. Went to Party City, got some stuff for Halloween, went to Home Goods. I needed to get a little stopper for my sink, and the Home Goods, the Party City, and Little Caesars are all right together, and I went swimming after work, and I just made the executive decision that I was like, "Yeah, by the time I get home, like, I don't have time to cook anything, I'm just gonna do pizza and be done with it." And I put a Sam's transaction in here because I actually expected to go to Sam's this weekend and get some stuff, but then I took a look at, like, what I had in my fridge, what I had in my freezer, and I was like, plus I had 2, conference days this week where I was getting lunch, so I didn't actually have to take lunch, and then we do, my some friends of mine at work and I do this thing where one person, like, makes soup, for everyone in the group. So I was like, "Man, there's 3 days that I don't have to worry about lunch, so really then I just have to come up with 2 days of lunch." So I was like, I think I'm gonna skip the grocery store this week." Like, I think I have enough that I can do that. So I did. So that was nice. But I did get gas, $34.42. So, although actually, I guess that was technically next week's pay or next week's expenses. Um, yeah, I'm gonna actually flip these around right now. Maybe I'm gonna flip these around right now. Come on, because it will now be next week's. I originally had the date on there as 10 22 because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go this weekend, so I'll just put it down there. And then I didn't go. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm changing that till next weekend. So but I did actually forget. I do have to run to the grocery store on like Thursday or Friday. I have to get some things for Saturday. I think I'm doing Saturday with my mom and my aunt, but oh well, we'll survive. It'll be fine. It'll totally be fine. So anyway, when you guys do your transactions, or even how do you do your budget? Are you writing it down on paper? Are you keeping track of things on paper? Do you use a budgeting app? I used to use one, um, the Dave Ramsey one, and like I got like a free year of it when I did Financial Peace University. And then like I kind of like that. It didn't quite do everything I needed it to do. And then I switched over to a spreadsheet. I know a lot of people use things like you need a budget and what I can't. I'm sure if I sat down and like figured it out and spent time on it, I would have figured it out. But like I just it's so confusing to me. I really struggle with it. And I've just found that a spreadsheet works the easiest for me. It is actually I put all my transactions in one column or in on one sheet, and it feeds into my budget sheet so I can kind of see how I'm doing on my expenses from week to week, at least the totals. So I'm enjoying that so far, and it's actually helped me come up with a really good way of doing. I used to do like a sheet for each month, but then it made it really hard to like actually total the months and look at like year spending and how much income I have coming in and things like that. So I've made that change. But leave a comment down below. Let me know, what is it that you use? Are you spreadsheet people? Do you not track at all? Do you use pen and paper? Do you use an app? What is it? Let me know. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.